with us. For those of you who don't know me, I am the immediate past president, and my daughter has been in FCPS since she was in preschool. So we've gone through preschool, elementary. She's now in middle school. She has a rare genetic disorder that impacts her global and fine motor and significantly impacts her speech, and she's an AAC user. So this is my intro into SEPTA was advocacy a long time ago, and I really hope to help make it easy and accessible for everyone here tonight to help jump right in. Erin, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Amanda. Hello, everyone. My name is Erin Spaniel. I'm very new to the group. I've been joining Amanda for about a month now, but previous to coming here, I'm an occupational therapist by background. I've worked in school districts, but most recently worked in policy and was the policy director at the National Institutes of Health for Rehabilitation Research and also at the Department of Veterans Affairs. So, um, came to know SEPTA a little bit as my son enters school and very pleased to be here with all of you.
We are very grateful to have you, Erin. Your experience is amazing and is going to be such a great asset to us moving forward. I'm so excited to work with you. Um, Moving on to our agenda for the evening. I'm using the presenter view, so I'm hoping this is all going to work. Um, so here is our agenda for the night. We're going to cover a little bit of kind of just a PTA advocacy 101 for those who may not be familiar. I'll share a little bit more about the advocacy work that SEPTA is doing. Michelle gave a great intro as part of the general membership meeting. And then we'll go into some practical tips for advocacy and some of the upcoming opportunities, both locally, state, and nationally. Um, and my major goal with this presentation is to help make this easy and accessible for everyone here. I know when I first joined SEPTA, the idea of advocacy and speaking publicly was super uncomfortable. I didn't like public speaking, to be honest. I still don't. I know people will look at me and say, I don't understand that because you do it all the time, but I don't love it. But learning how to speak up for our kids is essential, as I'm sure many of us have already learned. Not just knowing what to say, but where and how to say it so that it has a lasting impact. So our goal tonight is to help make that more accessible for everyone, especially as we enter what we know will be a challenging budget year. And to start off with this, it's important to know this doesn't really get covered a lot, at least in a lot of the local PTA meetings I'm in. But PTA is an advocacy organization at its core. It's not necessarily about the programs and events. Our core mission is advocacy, to specifically to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. Now you will see two different mission statements on here. SEPTA has created our own mission statement as well to specifically address the needs of students with disabilities, and that communication and empowerment for staff as well as students and our families. So this is what powers our work. This is why we're here. This is my why every day. So I just want to highlight this as it really is the core of what PTA work is all about. And we want to have your voice join us at the table. The more the people that we have, the stronger our voice is. So getting right into that. This is the basics of what PTA advocacy is. On the left, you'll see PTA's national standards for family school partnerships. And the piece I'm highlighting here is the standard 4 in the bottom corner, speaking up for every child. That is what our work calls us to do. We do focus on students with disabilities, but I do also want to share and highlight, as I'm sure we all know, a lot of the work that benefits students with disabilities also benefits all students. So that is what we are here for. Our approach as an organization is very collaborative. It's our goal to work together with the schools, with teachers, with staff in a collaborative fashion to make change. We have found over the years that, you get more bees with honey, and we've been able to make some really good relationships at all levels, local, state, and national, which has benefited our children in the long run. For those of you who may be newer to SEPTA, A few years ago, there was a massive restraint and seclusion lawsuit and expose coming from national media. It was a very big deal. It was very emotionally charged. There was a lot of opinions on both sides, from all sides. I don't even want to say both because it was more than one. Admin, teachers, staff, families, everybody. And we worked together with everyone as much as we could to come up with solutions that both protect our children and also give our teachers and staff the resources they need to be successful in the classroom. And that is something that guides our work every day. The next piece that I want to highlight is that our work is nonpartisan. As a 501c3, it is required that we are nonpartisan. When we interact with campaigns, we only do so in terms of saying outreach to candidates, to all candidates on an election, for candidate questionnaires or candidate forum. We don't single out anyone by party. We do our best to advocate with everyone equally. This is a requirement of the IRS code. So as a nonpartisan organization, we lack affiliation with any party, and our advocacy should always be based on our PTA approved resolutions, position statements, and legislative priorities, and grounded in our values and mission. Which we will go more into. All right. So I mentioned approved position statements and resolutions from local, state, and national PTA. That is what all of our advocacy is required to be based off of. I'll go into a little bit more what some of the differences are between those two things on the next slide. But all of that is generated from our general membership, from our members, from you. So, and at the state level and at the national level, like, all builds off of each other. So all of it is membership approved. All of it is grounded in the mission that we read at the beginning, advocating for all children, and PTA's values. I don't know if this will. Here we go. The PTA values are collaboration, commitment, diversity, respect, and accountability. So that's kind of the guiding principles of our work. And then again, to highlight the nonpartisan. The green box at the bottom, just to highlight, because of these requirements, we cannot speak in opposition to positions that either state PTA or national PTA has taken. We can either speak in support or choose to remain silent. If they have not taken a position on something we want to take a position on, we're free to then take a position. But we do have to be careful that as an organization, we do not speak in opposition to things that national or state are speaking in support of, and vice versa. So I mentioned resolutions and position statements. I'm not going to go through and read the slide. The biggest thing that I want to point out is resolutions tend to be about long-term commitment pieces of advocacy, and they take a bit more time. They take a bit more input into the creation. Position statements are a lot more nimble. They're a lot more flexible and allow us to respond in the moment to things. Using the restraint and seclusion event as an example, we did start with a position statement that was approved by our board, because position statements can be approved by the board or by the general membership. And then as that work went on, we wrote a resolution, which was then approved by the general membership, as resolutions are required to be. We were then able to send that resolution to the state, and the state adopted it as well. So one just takes a little bit more time. One allows us to be a little bit more flexible. And then our legislative priorities, which you will see multiple times through tonight. And when you get the slides, there's links to in here. This body voted on our approved legislative priorities in October this year. So we present that to everybody every year. Virginia PTA also has their legislative priorities that they present, their board votes on, and they bring every year. So those are existing and available to everyone. Hey, sorry, I'm struggling with tech too. So what does this mean for you? I tried to be pretty quick about this. There's a lot of information there. So if you do have questions, please let me know. But this is the piece that I wanted to get to. What does this mean for you? So you can see they're speaking on behalf of SEPTA as an organization. The only people that should be speaking as the organization, say identifying I am an officer of SEPTA or I am a board member of SEPTA, are people who are either elected or on the board. What they speak to should only be our approved priorities, and that coordination should happen with the president and the advocacy chair so that we're all aware of what's going on. All of our other members, which are all of you here tonight, we encourage you to speak in support of our positions and support in our work. And for example, what you could say when you introduce yourself, if you're giving public comment or writing an email, is saying like, "Hi, my name is," and I'm sharing this as an individual. I am in support of SEPTA's position on this. Rather than saying I'm speaking for SEPTA. And again, all members, if you are using SEPTA in that way, please make sure that you're speaking to our membership approved priorities, or delineate where you then differ. Like if you go into something that we haven't created a position about, make it clear that this is something that is something you are speaking to personally and not as the organization. And we can support you in all of this. So as the advocacy year goes on, you will get calls to action from us over email. We will have testimony prep tips later in this presentation. This presentation will go on YouTube, so you can refer to it at any time. And if you ever have questions, please feel free to reach out to me, reach out to Erin, Michelle and Diane and I. We all have a lot of experience with testifying, so we're always happy to help if you have any questions. And then we also will help facilitate anonymous testimony. We are very cognizant of the fact that there are people who are concerned about speaking up, whether they be staff or families who may be concerned about potential retaliation if they speak publicly. We are very sensitive to this. So if there is something that you want to share but you do not want your name or face attached to it, please reach out to us via email and we can help to arrange for someone else to sign up and read your testimony for you. So just want to let you know that that is an option as well. Where does our advocacy come from? There's a lot of words up here. Where does it all come from? Our member experiences. We take a lot from what people share with us, whether it's contacting us directly or what we see in our Facebook groups, when we talk and network with people in our in-person events, and also feedback we get from staff. So this is coming from both families and staff. All of that helps to inform what we're doing. We also look to outcome data, both locally from FCPS, from the state, from national, to see what trends, what data is alarming and what things we may need to raise. We focus on promoting evidence-based practices, of course. And then we have our SEPTA positions, resolutions, and priorities, all of which are available on our website under the advocacy tab. All of those have been approved by the general membership. I don't believe we have any position statements up there that were board only, except for perhaps restraint and seclusion. Everything else up there has been approved by the general membership. Virginia PTA's positions, resolutions, and priorities are available on their site, and the national PTAs are available on theirs as well, and those are all linked in here. This is what makes up the topics that we bring to the table, and we try to be as flexible as possible and in the buckets that we bring this into, because we know that things come up that perhaps we didn't anticipate. So that's taken into account when we create our advocacy priorities. And as Michelle said at the beginning, the more members we have, the louder our voices are, and the more that we can share and advocate for our kids. So I do really encourage everybody here to join. It really is very powerful when we can say we're speaking on behalf of this many people. We have 30,000 students with IEPs alone. That's not including 504s in Fairfax County. And right now we only have about 240 members. So Any assistance you guys can give us in helping to get the word out about us and encouraging people to join, that will help drive our advocacy and help it land very powerfully with our elected officials. I mentioned our advocacy priorities document. Erin, I think, is going to share a link in the chat if you want to open it. It is quite detailed, quite long. It's very broad, but it is long. So I wanted to take a moment to just very high level it for you. If you have any specific questions, please feel free to follow up in the questions we can cover at the end, or follow up with me via email afterwards. We're happy to engage that way also. The main buckets that our advocacy falls into are evidenced on the screen. So we've got access and inclusion, instruction and supports, funding and systems, staffing and training, rights and accountability, and health and well-being. So what that means locally, just to give you some high-level ideas. So when we're talking about access, accessibility of curriculum. Can our kids access Benchmark? Accessibility of materials and facilities. Can children enter our building? We know that there are school buildings that don't have switches, for example, for students in wheelchairs to be able to enter the building. Health and well-being, our students' mental health, parent rights and IEP rights falling under rights and accountability, local funding for FCPS, staff equity and support. At the state level, local and state level, we talk a lot about disproportionate discipline. And then at the state level, that kind of delves into how it's criminalized for students with disabilities, school to prison pipeline. We talk a lot at all levels about literacy and the desperate need for science of reading-based literacy and making sure that we're covering all students, as Michelle, I think, covered earlier. Improved teacher and administrative training. We know that colleges and universities, their teacher prep programs don't all have fantastic support for students, for teaching our teachers how to teach students with disabilities. So that's a point of advocacy for us with the state. And of course, the state also covers staffing, the standards of quality that are in state law. That's all set by the General Assembly and impacts the funding that FCPS receives. So you'll hear me talk more about that later. And then nationally, of course, the two big issues this year are federal funding for IDEA and what is happening with the dismantling of the Department of Education and how that's going to impact IDEA funding, IDEA programs that are being funded for students with disabilities from this funding. There's a lot of questions, and we're staying on top of that as best we can. And we will bring calls to action to you as we have them. National PTA has put some out over the year, and we share them on our social media so you can participate as well. So just very high level, these are kind of the biggest buckets of where our advocacy work goes. The document has significantly more information, so feel free to include that. And if there are things in there that we need to consider that we haven't, please, again, reach out to us. Okay. So what do we do with all of that information? I just said a lot. What do we do with it? We have the most important thing that we have been able to get in place in the last few years has been quarterly meetings with Dr. Reed. When she first joined the staff, we had a meeting with her before she even took office, and she offered us quarterly meetings with her when she was there. This is unprecedented access for us with a superintendent, and we meet with her and her leadership team quarterly and have some very in-depth and supportive, but also challenging at times conversations about what needs to happen for our kids. But being able to get it to Dr. Reed directly has been incredibly helpful. The 2-week committee work that Michelle is referencing is a direct result of some of those conversations. We also meet every other month with the Department of Special Services. So this is the department that is in charge of special education instruction and the due process piece. So we meet with that leadership. We have a meeting upcoming with them on Friday. And I do hope to be able to do updates in the group about what we're sharing there. Michelle mentioned earlier the Advisory Committee for Students with Disabilities, and Dina, the other couple of committees here Michelle mentioned earlier, so I won't go over them again. State and nationally, we talk with our elected officials at both levels. Michelle, Aaron, and I will be going to Virginia PTA Capital Day. There will be more information on that towards the end. It's the 23rd. And then I am also going to the National PTA Legislative Convention, which is in Alexandria in March, and I encourage anyone to join me there. They're both excellent opportunities to actually get face time with the representatives for whom you are a constituent. It's a great opportunity to get to talk with them. But I know that that can all seem very overwhelming. There are a lot of ways to get involved. So I really want to emphasize the importance of just taking a step back and choosing one. There are so many ways that you can contribute, but any single way that you can will help. And once you get started, it's easy to start taking on more as you get more comfortable. So I don't want all of this information to be like, whoa, that's a lot. So just take a step back and think about like what means the most to me right now. What issue is at the biggest core of what I need to have addressed, and where can I go? So I have a couple of different things up here, the share your voice and use your voice and amplify your voice. The idea of this is we know that everybody only has so many hours in the day. Some people may not be able to get out to public meetings when the public meetings are happening in order to be able to testify live. So I wanted to give a variety of ways that you can participate and advocate, not just for your kid, but all of our kids. Emailing elected officials, our school board members, our board of supervisors, your state delegates. They can be very responsive. Watching meetings to stay informed. All of FCPS's school board meetings are on YouTube. I'm not going to say it's riveting TV, but it is important TV. Today, for example, they did a work session on the strategic plan goal 3, which is talking about where our children are in being able to learn how to read by 3rd grade. And there's some very important data that's shared there. And FCPS is nice now and does chapter them, so you know what they're talking about at least. So when they have 8-hour-long meetings, it at least gives you an idea of where in that meeting they started talking about the thing that you care about. There's also social media rallies and calls to action. I mentioned we'll send emails out. When we send emails out with call to action, we will, as we are able, send talking points and tips to help make that very clear and very quick turnaround in terms of what you can do to help with that call to action. There's also speaking at public meetings. As Michelle mentioned, ACSD meets, the Advisory Committee for Students with Disabilities meets tomorrow night. They meet the second Wednesday of every month, and they always have public comment. And pretty much every month without fail, there are openings. So you can just show up and speak. You get 3 minutes at ACSD to speak. The school board, you can sign up. Signups open the Friday before for school board and close Tuesday at 5, and then they will notify you whether or not you have been selected. If there are more than 13, I believe it's 13 people who signed up, it becomes a lottery, but they will inform you by Wednesday morning whether or not you've been selected. You get 2 minutes at the school board. That's a little more challenging, but our tips that are coming later will speak to that. There is also the state special education advisory. That's the state version of our ACSD. We're Fairfax, so we have to be special and call it something different. And then phone calls or virtual meetings with elected officials. I'm not going to lie, I have Senator Warner, Senator Kaine, and Congressman Walkinshaw's numbers in my phone when I'm stuck in traffic on the Beltway. Is a really good time to call and wait on hold to talk with one of them. Gets the job done. And then, of course, there's the most bandwidth is attending Capitol Day, attending national PTAs, conventions, being there in person. So I just want to give you an overview of all of the options that are available, but really my main message with this slide is choose one. Choose where your energy will be best spent and where you can best share the way in which you can best share your message. If you are really strong with verbal communication, you may want to consider starting with the ACSD or school board. If you are really strong in written communication, start with emails. So this is some tips for crafting your message. Because this, for me at least, is the most challenging piece. I've always struggled with knowing what exactly I want to say and like how to get there. So these tips help me with creating my testimony. I hope they will help you as well. Again, similarly to choosing one place in terms of how to advocate and where to advocate, choose one priority on which to advocate. What is the most impactful thing that is happening to your family right now that you need to raise awareness about? We all, I'm sure, I know I do, I'm sure all of us do, have very, very, very many things that we would like to say. But it helps to keep the message very clear. So limiting it is very helpful. Know your audience. This is mostly, I want to highlight this with respect, especially to the time limits. So knowing where you're speaking, how much time you have to speak helps you with crafting the message, so you make sure you hit the points you need to hit in the time that you have, because they are strict about those time limits and they will cut you off. So just be aware of that when you're crafting your message. Know who you're talking to, what their knowledge base is. When talking to the Board of Supervisors, for example, we had a meeting with the Board of Supervisors with a supervisor yesterday, and the knowledge level for a supervisor in terms of what is happening in the classroom, say for example with special education department chairs, what a supervisor is aware of is significantly different than what our school board members are aware of. So just knowing who you're talking to and being aware you may have to give more or less information depending on who you are talking to, because they may not have the foundation that you have. So you may need to give them just a little bit of more of an intro than you might need, but they will need it in order to hear your message. Speak from the heart. I cannot say this enough. This is what every advocacy organization I have been a part of for the last, I don't know, nine years or so has said. Statistics are important and they do matter, and the data is powerful, but what makes your message land and stick with an elected official is how it impacts your family, your child. That emotional connection between here's what the policy is, here's what the impact is incredible. So don't hesitate to share that. I'm not gonna lie, there's been many times I've gotten up there and I've like either half crying by the time I'm done, or I leave the podium and then I go cry. So it is powerful, because if you're feeling that, so is the elected official who is listening to you. Keeping it simple, along with the know your audience. Keep it simple, keep it powerful, and practice. It may sound silly and it may be challenging to do depending on how you can go ahead and craft your messages, but if you're giving live testimony, it is really helpful to practice that time limit. Often when I am nervous, I speak faster than I intend. I'm not doing that tonight, which I'm proud of, but often I do. And the Western New Yorker in me will come out and I will start talking a mile a minute like this. Hello. And the amount of information I get out is a lot different when I'm talking fast versus when I am talking at a controlled pace. So just being aware of your speaking pace and what that looks like on the page, so you don't get cut off, so your message gets heard. Michelle had structured last year a really great example for structuring testimony. Have your lead in. Who are you? Your name, your role, if there's an organization that you work with. For example, hi, my name is Amanda Campbell. I am the advocacy co-chair for Fairfax County SEPTA, and I am a former teacher and mother to a child with a rare disorder. If I'm speaking on my own, I would omit the part about being SEPTA's co-chair, but what brings you to the work? Are you a parent? Are you a family member? Are you a professional? Are you an ally? What do you care about most when it comes to the topic that you are raising? What's a real life example that can help others understand why this issue matters? And then what is the one thing you want the person you're speaking to or the group that you're speaking to do or understand. I always try to end my final line with my ask. I will start with my ask and I will end with my ask so that they are reminded this is the piece I really need you to understand. So why are we reaching out to you guys? As I said at the beginning, we know that this is going to be a challenging budget year. At the end of last year, some of you may remember that there was a big scramble because we heard last minute that there were positions at risk of being cut, and the elementary special ed department chairs were one of those positions. This slide was created last spring for those discussions, and the school board and board of supervisors shared it again at the meeting. They discussed this in November. I mentioned earlier the standards of quality with Virginia. That is the state law that sets our staffing ratios and requirements, the baseline that school districts have to provide. What's on this slide represents what FCPS funds that is above and beyond the standards of quality. So when we don't, if we expect it to be when we don't get as much funding as needed to continue as things currently are, these will be the first places that are looked at for potential cuts because these are not required by state law. So I'm not saying that these are proposed cuts, like there are no official proposals on the table right now, but we have to be aware of these things as being at risk. And noting on here, we have advanced academic resource teachers who help to support our twice exceptional students, applied behavior analysis and preschool autism classroom enhanced staffing, assistant principals, class sizes, specialists like elementary art, music, PE. The elementary special education department chairs are on here again. Needs-based staffing, summer school. These are all things that can help impact our kids. So we need to be very aware of what's happening with this moving forward. And we will do that work as an organization. That's why we need you though, because we will be doing outreach throughout the year as the budget cycle continues. I'm going to put this on the screen. As this budget cycle continues, you will get calls to action from us. They may be social media based, they may be emails, they may be here's a hearing to sign up for. But those calls to action will come. So please make sure that you are signed up for our email list. If you are a member, you will get added to the list automatically. We do update that ourselves, or there is a join our email list on the front page of our website on the sidebar, fairfaxcountysepta.org. So please make sure you sign up for those emails. I believe Erin also has a survey link in here at the end. So if you are interested in, I'll let her explain it later, but you can share your interest level with us so we can potentially do some more targeted outreach to you. This is the timeline we're looking at. Next week, FCPS will release the proposed budget. On the 10th, FCPS will host a budget hearing. The policy for public hearings in FCPS is that registration will open at least 10 days prior to the hearing. I believe that is 10 business days. And it should close at 4:30 p.m. 2 days beforehand, which I do also believe is business days. So for this particular hearing, registration should close Friday the 6th at 4:30 p.m. When exactly it will open, we don't know, but when you get the slides, the underline is the link to where that information will come whenever they put it out. And we will send out emails, as I said, to give you a heads up. On Tuesday, February 17th, the county executive releases the advertised budget publicly. So that is when the board of supervisors and the school board know what the proposed budget is coming from the county executive. On the 24th, they will have a joint work session on the budget that will be on FCPS's YouTube channel. They live stream it, and then it's also there available recorded after. And then in April, there's 3 days worth of public hearings with the Board of Supervisors. And then again in May, there will be another public hearing from FCPS on what will then be what they will approve as the budget. So keep keep this timeline kind of in mind. This is why we're doing this. This is why the outreach needs to happen. Last year, everything was very last minute, and we are so grateful for the turnout that we got in support of special ed department chairs. But this year, we're hoping to be a little bit more on top of it and hopefully prevent the kind of last minute rush that we all kind of felt last year as that was happening. We may also send out some calls to action during the General Assembly. The State Assembly convenes tomorrow for a 60-day session. There are a variety of bills that will impact special education. We don't know exactly what those all are yet or what all of those numbers are. Virginia PTA will put up a bill watch list on their Capitol Day page. We may have some additional bills we're following that they don't. But if we have any calls to action to that, we will send emails out for that as well. And now I am going to turn it over to Erin for some more upcoming opportunities.
Thanks, Amanda. Do you mind just advancing the slide forward?
Oh, yep. 100%.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
All right. So this is just going to be a little bit of a recap because Amanda's mentioned many times some of these opportunities, including the Virginia PTA Day. The Capitol Day is coming up just in a couple of weeks, the 23rd. And this is going to be a great opportunity to listen to the bills that will be debated. You'll get to meet your legislator. And at this time, you can share your perspective on how these policies and the funding impact your students and our school community. So students are welcome to attend. I think that makes it even more powerful. Make sure they're registered. And the time that you meet with your legislator is brief. It's only about 15 minutes. So what Amanda was saying about making sure what you want to say is really concise and some of those key points about, speaking and sharing your story is really important. And we're here if you want to be able to talk with us and get more tips and practice. But it's really important that we do go and attend and share our stories. So if you want to help prepare in any other way, you can go to the website. I'll pop that in the chat in a minute, but the General Assembly has a preview webinar and also an advocacy social. So it's a way to network and also a way to help prepare before the big Capitol Day. Another really important event coming up is the PTA Legislative Conference. So that will be in Alexandria this March. And it's a great opportunity. I love these. It's a great opportunity for people interested in growing their advocacy skills. No one's expecting you to be a professional advocate to go there. You're going there to network, and you're going there from people across the country who have the same passion that you do. So again, this takes place in Alexandria, Virginia. There's tons, if you go to the website, there's a agenda, and there's tons and tons of courses and classes so you can stay informed on specific topics that you care about most. You can hear from congressional champions and policy leaders. There's also tools for you to gain skills in how to kind of influence and sway policy. So I know there is a fee. If you can do it, it's worth hearing it, but there's also an opportunity because it's in Virginia and we're in Virginia PTA that you can go just on the 3rd, which is Capitol Hill Day. And Amanda, you correct me if I'm wrong, but they do waive that fee for us if you just want to go for that portion to be able to advocate on Capitol Day.
That's not official from National PTA, but
Okay.
yes, Virginia PTA does not mind people coming and joining them for the meetings with our constituents, with our congressional representatives at Hill Day. They are happy to facilitate that. They understand, like, we have a unique opportunity because we're right here. So they don't want to deny anybody the opportunity to be present simply because the registration fee is high. So Virginia PTA has always been very supportive in that route. Erin, I'm going to kick it back to you for a minute because I thought my computer was charging, but it's not.
No, that's great. And if you could just forward the slide if you get a moment.
Yes.
Thanks. Yes, this is kind of a soapbox slide, but one that I think we all can understand because at the end of the day, your voice really matters and we do need you. Our children deserve the chance to learn and thrive. And if we want to make this a reality, we need our voices. And stepping forward and sharing our story is one of the most powerful ways we can do that. And advocacy does matter. It shapes policies. It has a direct impact on our kids' lives. And when we share our stories, not just the challenges, but the triumphs, they understand and they matter. We humanize the statistics. And I think that's what you were pointing at earlier, Amanda. We can't just share those statistics. You'll hear it in board meetings. We have to make sure that we're bringing to light the real needs of our children. So we've seen stories that inspire change. It takes a very, very long time to make policy and advocacy move forward, but um, as much as we can do to kind of foster that empathy and understanding in our new board that we have and people that have the power to make change is going to be really important. That's why I'm here. I think that's why all of you are here and listening. So I have a link in there to a survey. We'd love to learn and hear more about what you know about advocacy, what you're hoping to learn about it, how we can help you, and then just in general, how we can stay connected. So, I mean, it's a larger movement and it makes sure our kids' needs are met, not just with words, but in action. And I'm hoping with all these budget changes that we are continuing to support our kids to make sure they're not falling through the cracks. So that's my soapbox. That's all of our soapboxes, and the link is there. And then if you want to forward it the slide one more,
Yeah.
I think this is just the group. Oh, yep, me and Amanda. Again, Amanda knows everything about this. I'm still very new and absorbing and learning, but I'm very happy to help and listen to any prepared remarks people have if they want to bounce ideas off of us.
Erin is very kind. I do not know everything, but I am very good at going and finding the answers to things I don't know. And Michelle and Diane are also fantastic resources. We've all been advocating here for a long time, so we are happy to help anyone. Just send us an email. All right. I'm gonna just so that those of you who may not have been aware of us, I know Michelle asked us to put our videos on earlier. These are your SEPTA officers, a couple of whom were here tonight. Their contact information is all on the website, and that is linked. The yellow piece at the top is a link. Thank you very much to our officers for putting in all of the hard work that you do. It is not always an easy job, but it is a very rewarding one, and your work is much appreciated. And then here is the rest of our board, and not all of this may be correct from what I heard earlier, so I apologize if there's some names on here that are no longer in those positions. But as